Initially, British forces captured German naval and Luftwaffe personnel, including U-39 submarine crew, on September 14, 1939. Captain Gerhard Glattes held one of the lengthiest terms as a POW, being released in April 1947 after over 7 years. The first 2 POW camps were set up. Camp Number 1, Grizedale Hall, Lancashire, known as the U-Boat Hotel, initially accommodating 21 POWs in a mansion meant for 200 officers. Camp No. 2, Glen Mill, Oldham, Lancashire, a former cotton mill converted to house 2,000 other ranks, non-officers. During the early phase of the war, Britain adopted a policy of sending all enemy prisoners to Canada. During Operation Torch, the war in North Africa, prisoners were detained in camps in the Middle East or shipped to America. Britain's Italian prisoners were taken to the United Kingdom, where they were housed in a network of camps and were used as a workforce, predominantly in agriculture due to the shortage of farm workers. After D-Day, the invasion of Europe, very large numbers of German military personnel were taken prisoner. Immediately after the Allied landings, captured German troops were rounded up and taken to the invasion beaches, where a small fleet of LST landing ships tank had been detailed to transport them to England. The majority were then taken to a transit camp at Kempton Park Racecourse for interrogation, and onward to a network of several hundred camps around the country, many of which had earlier been built and occupied by Italian prisoners, who were due to be repatriated earlier than the Germans. For the first time, the number of German prisoners of war held in Britain reached a substantial total. Conditions in the British-run camps in Belgium were described as extremely harsh, and when the financial secretary to the War Office, Frederick Bellinger, received reports on the situation, he is stated to have been filled with horror. The camps in Belgium were then closed down and all the prisoners were transferred to Britain by late July 1946. With the arrival of these additional prisoners, the total in Britain exceeded 400,000 in September 1946. Due to the collapse of Germany's economy, Britain claimed that Germany would not have been able to support an additional 400,000 men. It was unlikely that accommodation for the men could have been provided, at least in the initial period following Germany's surrender. It is also doubtful whether materials, transport, and other resources required for the country's reconstruction could have been provided at that time. Even at this late stage, Britain was still desperately short of agricultural workers, while at the same time, a significant number of the POWs were reluctant to return to Germany. Reasons for this included their original home now being within the Soviet sector, being in a relationship with a British woman, and adverse reactions to the atrocities committed by the Nazis. Britain introduced a scheme under which men could be discharged from their prisoner status and could apply to stay on as civilian workers. About 30,000 men asked to join the scheme, and just under 25,000 were accepted. Medical and dental care in the POW camps were provided by visiting British doctors and dentists, or by German prisoners with appropriate qualifications gained in Germany before enlisting in the forces. Even before the German surrender, some of the POWs were put to work as agricultural laborers on a trial basis. Most POWs were employed on farms, as Britain urgently needed a high level of food production and there was a shortage of agricultural workers. The British government allowed some prisoners to be billeted on the farms where they were employed under minimal supervision. The prisoners received pay of 1 shilling 5p per day. The practice of billeting POWs with farmers provided an opportunity for an atmosphere of trust and friendship to evolve and delve. In late 1946, civilians were allowed for the first time to invite prisoners to their homes for Christmas. Prisoners were encouraged to produce their own camp magazines, and a weekly German-language newspaper, Wochenpost, was published by the British government specifically for the POWs. Lectures by visiting speakers were arranged, and libraries, gramophone records, and film shows were provided. All of these activities were intended to demonstrate the principles of freedom of speech and political and racial tolerance. POWs, who were deemed to be suitable for more intensive instruction, were invited to attend the college at Wilton Park, which had been set up for their benefit and which is still in existence. Although as a whole, many critics saw the re-education efforts made by the victorious powers as problematic and questionable, it is a fact that none of the powers made such a decisive effort as Great Britain, particularly in respect of the POWs, to assist Germany's return to a free and democratic European group of nations. The death toll of German prisoners in Britain was almost non-existent. Out of a total of 3,635,000, only 1,235 died. This represents a 0.03% compared with 34% in Russia. After the war, paratrooper Bert Trautmann went on to become a legendary footballer with Manchester City. I would like to mention that the British always lead by example. They consider themselves to be a civilized nation and treated the prisoners according to their own principles. They also consider the Germans to be their cousins, due to the fact that they are Anglo-Saxons. The Germans detained by British forces considered themselves very lucky, and after the war, many were integrated into British society, where their offspring remain to this day.